So, welcome to season 3, episode 14 of the Me and ADHD podcast. And today's conversation, we're going to be having it with TikTok's very own Mental Health Matters More, otherwise known as Catherine Harvey. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So today then, Catherine, we're going to be talking about your ADHD and its impact on your education and mental health. So how would you describe your education? So going right back then, how would you describe your education?
It was it was horrendous. It was awful.
Yeah.
I'd always struggled, even right from nursery. I wouldn't leave my mum in nursery. I'd get really, really distressed. So I ended up not going to nursery. Because he just thought, oh, she's just too distressed. We just won't send her. So I ended up, staying at home, getting looked after by family. I started in primary school and was very, very unsettled just the whole time. I don't ever remember a time where things were okay or things were good, or I don't ever remember being happy to go to school. I was on like a reduced timetable when I was, I think, in year three. Um, just kind of put me on like half days because there was a teacher that I just couldn't take to, and I don't think she could take to me. And the answer to that was, well, you just don't go in when that teacher's there. I really struggled in my lessons. I remember being so young, and I remember seeing other people sitting there getting on with the work and just thinking, why can't I do that? Why am I sat here just completely lost and everybody else is fine, everybody else is okay? Um, that went on for the whole of primary school. I think towards the end of primary school, I did settle a little bit.
Okay.
I always had friends. That wasn't the problem. There was always friends, but I struggled with the friendships. I kind of would latch on to one person, and then if they kind of were friends with somebody else, I'd be like, oh my god, they hate me, they hate me, they hate me. So yeah, I really, really struggled with that. And then when I went to secondary school, I started and I was there for about maybe 3 weeks, and it was like, yeah, this isn't working. I'm not going back. So then they moved me to another school, and I was there for a couple of days. And again, it was, what's the matter with you? We've done you a favour letting you into this school. Why aren't you behaving? And it was like, it's not that I'm not behaving. I was never a kind of, running out the class shouting, throwing tables or anything like that. But I was very much a kind of, you know, I'm not going. I'm not going to my lesson. I'm not going. I'm not doing it, and you can't make me. Because I just didn't know how to be when I was in there. So year seven, they kind of like put things in place. Oh, how can we help? How can we help? I did actually see an educational psychologist. But obviously this was the 90s. That's all the educational psychologists at primary school. This was the 90s, weren't as kind of informed about things as they are now. So it was kind of like, we can't see what's wrong with her. She's got friends. She's funny. She can have a great conversation. She's just shy. It was kind of, she's just shy, and that kind of went on like that for a long time. I think in year seven they were like, oh, we'll see what we can do. Maybe a reduced timetable, maybe time out, things like that. None of it worked. And then probably I'd say maybe 6 months into year seven, that was it. I was just like, I'm not going. Just not doing it. I'm not going. Um, so they left me alone. That was it, really. It was just, oh well, there's no point kind of trying to get her in because she's not going to come. So yeah, it was pretty awful. And then I think that was year seven, eight, and nine. I just didn't go to school at all because I just couldn't cope. The anxiety was just too much, and I didn't know why I couldn't be there. I just knew I couldn't. So yeah, that was three years out of school. Yeah.
Blimey. So do you know now why you could go into the class? Knowing what you know now and the
Yeah.
diagnosis and all that, do you know what do you reckon the issue was?
I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I think there was so much noise, so I couldn't concentrate on what I was supposed to be doing because I was too busy thinking, okay, there's somebody going past the classroom, or what are they doing over there, or I used to I hated sitting anywhere near the front. I couldn't bear. Even now, I don't like people sitting behind me. I don't know what that is. It's just that kind of. When people are sitting behind me, I'm kind of thinking, trying to turn around, what are they doing? What's going on? What's going on? So I was just so distracted by everything. I couldn't focus on what the teacher was saying or what I was supposed to be doing. I couldn't start the work, so I didn't know how to start it. When like the teacher says something to you, like, right, you go off and do this yourself now. I'd be like, do what? I don't know what I should be doing. I thought I was listening. I was trying to listen, but I actually was only getting tiny little bits of what the teacher was saying because I was thinking of, something else. I was thinking about, is my hair all right? Because I was so conscious about what everybody thought of me. I was so kind of like self conscious because I'm very, very tall as well. So I was always very much taller than everybody else. So I'd always kind of try and make myself look smaller. Um, and I think it was a combination of so many things. I mean, like the classroom lights are horrible. Even things like that, like the lights are horrible, and you just think, oh my god, it's like so clinical, isn't it? Um, but yeah, the noise, the distractions, the not knowing kind of where I begin with anything, and just sitting there with just empty books and empty pages in front of me. And I remember I used to doodle, so it looked like I was doing something. So the teacher wouldn't be like, "Why aren't you sitting there writing?" So I just used to doodle and be really, really quiet, and then have nothing in my book ever. Um, so yeah, I think it was that there's 30 kids in a mainstream class a lot of the time, isn't there? You've got to kind of manage what all those other people are saying and what all those other people are doing, and trying all the time trying to appear what they would consider normal. Um, when really I was just in a little world of my own, and I would be the kind of one that mind was just going over and over and over. So I couldn't actually focus on what I should be focusing on because I was so busy thinking about so many other things.
People just don't don't get it.
No,
When you explain to you're there and you're trying, but you just can't focus on what the teacher is saying. It's 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 hard. I mean, I had the same problem as yourself. I couldn't focus on what they're saying. I wasn't one to say I wasn't going, and I wasn't one to not put anything down. I used to look at the person next to me, which I'm pretty confident they thought I was just cheating and copying them.
yeah,
But I was trying to work out what was going on. And most of the time I used to hand back the work and it was wrong
yeah,
because I didn't have the information. So I put something down because I felt I need to put something down, but it was generally wrong.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that whole trying to focus and trying to concentrate, it isn't about, you know, bouncing off the walls and jumping around and, obviously not paying attention. I mean, it can be, I guess, but
yeah,
not for everybody. You can physically just sit there, sit still and look at the teacher
yeah.
and really sort of concentrate on what they're saying, but you're
But
just
it
not
doesn't
getting
go
it
in.
because your head is going
Yeah,
all over the place.
and that's what it exactly was. And I wanted to do well. I did. I used to say to them, do you think that I want to be like this? Do you think I want to, not be in class? Do you think I want to be so different from everybody else? I don't know how. I don't know how. People used to say, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And I would say, I don't know what you can do because I don't know what to do. And I think that was like
Yeah.
so it did become, I was just quite defiant. I wasn't badly behaved, I wasn't rude or anything like that, but it was just kind of seen as just defiance of, I would just got to the point where I said, no, I'm not going. No, I'm not doing it, and you can't make me. And I was able, I was capable, and they would say that to me, you're able to do the lessons, you're clever, you're bright, and I'd say that makes absolutely no difference to me whatsoever because yes, I'm able when I sit with you one to one and somewhere quiet or something like that. Yes, I can do the work then. You put me into a classroom with 30 kids and I'm like, oh, something shiny over there. Oh, what am I having for my tea? Or, oh, somebody said something to me 2 weeks ago and maybe I should have said this instead of saying this and all that kind of thing. So it doesn't matter, how capable you are or how able you are. If you're not able to have that kind of focus, you're not going to be able to access the lessons, are you?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then obviously as a child, as you said, you don't have the words, you don't know what's going on. So how are you going to tell people what help you need?
Yeah,
It's not going to happen. And then
yeah,
people got to understand that, you know. Um, and I do feel sorry, in a way for children who will go through this. because of because they don't understand what they're going through, they can't really vocalize what they need. And that's a really hard thing. So a lot of it is guesswork on the adult's behalf.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
even with knowledge, it's a bit of guesswork. But back in the day, in the 90s and all that, well, it wasn't really guesswork either, was it? It was just, it was
No,
just
it was just
well,
kind of like we didn't have a clue. It was just like, oh, they're naughty, or and I think I was kind of lucky because my mum worked in education. So my mum was a head teacher, and she worked in education and behaviour and all that kind of thing. So she knew a lot of the people already. But that was also kind of a bit of a, well, what do we do? This amazing head teacher who is so good at what she does has got a daughter who she cannot get into school. So that was really difficult as well because, I think my mum tried. She really, really tried to get me help. There was, as I say, counsellors. There was, welfare officers. There was so many people. But I think I was always quite good at telling people what they wanted to hear. And I was always quite good at, people. There used to be a thing of, when someone would say to you, what are you thinking? And I go, nothing. And it wasn't that I was thinking nothing, is that I was thinking so many things. I couldn't pinpoint one thing to tell them that I was thinking about. So I did usually just say, oh, nothing, no, I'm fine. Because I didn't know how to express what was actually going on, or how I was actually feeling. So it was easier to say, no, nothing, I'm fine, than to
yeah,
delve deep into all the thoughts that you were having and all the things that were going on in your head that you couldn't make sense of.
yeah. And as you said, you spoke to a lot of people who I'm guessing were not trained in neurodivergent sort of condition, ADHD. So it's like, which still happens quite a bit now. You get told to speak to so many people and they don't know. It's like,
No.
why am I speaking to this person who has no idea what this condition is and what I'm going through? And it's a hard place to be,
Yeah, definitely.
to get the right help from the right people, you
Mm.
know. So you said that you were away for 3 years from
Yeah.
school. Um, so what was going on in those 3 years then? Just constantly
Nothing.
just didn't want to go? You just nothing?
Nothing was. I just didn't go. I was very much kind of. I was left alone for quite a long time. So I think year 7 there was bits of people in and out, kind of like, oh, year 8 I was just completely left alone. Didn't hear from school, nothing at all. It was basically a case of there's no point even asking her to come in because we know she's not going to. So year 8 was just completely just I was at home. My sister had actually had a baby around that time, so I was just loving being at home, just looking after the baby and just doing all that. So that was great. And then year 9, towards the end of year 9, they said that they wanted to send me to a people referral unit when I was in year 10. So
Okay,
they put me on like a home tuition thing. So I'd have like somebody come to the house like 2 or 3 times a week. But I was very good at distracting people from doing what we were actually supposed to, because obviously I'd missed out on 3 years of work, so I didn't have a clue. I didn't know about Shakespeare or anything like that, and it was boring. I had no interest in it whatsoever. So I was like, I'm not, So I would always kind of get them to talk about things that I was interested in and that I wanted to talk about. And then, I was quite clever at, well, what do you think? Or, and I'd pick, I remember one of my teachers at the time, she had been to Florida and we had been to Florida. So I was like, right, that's my angle. That's my angle. That's how I'm going to avoid all this work. And I'm going to talk to her about that. So quite often that did happen. It was just kind of like me just chatting away, having lovely little chats, and then they'd go, 2 hours is gone, I've got to go. And I'd done like page of work or something like that when I should have done like 5. But again, it was that, I had no interest in the thing. So I was like, well, why am I going to sit here and learn about something that I don't care about? And I think that's a massive thing with ADHD as well, isn't it? If you're not interested in something, it's so hard
yeah,
to to focus on it, because it's like, well, what's the point? If you don't see the point in something, why would you do it? And it does. It's so difficult because I was thinking, when am I going to use, algebra? When am I going to use all the Shakespeare stuff? I'm not. I don't care about it. So don't bother teaching me it. because I don't care. And I know that
Yeah.
sounds really, really bad, but it is that kind of, teach people with ADHD useful things. And if you get someone with ADHD on a topic that they really are really interested in, they're amazing, aren't they? The things that they know, and the things that they can find out, and the level of focus that they can have is amazing. But if they're not interested, it's very, very difficult to engage, isn't it? So yeah, so I did that quite a lot of just, oh, have a nice little chat. And then towards the end of year 9, I'd go in for like day one, maybe one, not even a full day, a couple of hours in like the isolation room, and I'd stay in there and I'd do a little bit of work, and then I'd go home. And that was kind of it, really. I didn't, from year 7, I wasn't in a classroom till I started a pupil referral unit in year 10. That's a long time to be out of a
Yeah.
classroom, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that is. And especially as they left you alone as well. I mean, just
Yeah.
left you alone. What the people referral unit? What do they do there? What happened there?
So it's one of those, it's a funny one, because in one sense it was great. We had smaller classes, teachers were a lot more understanding, it was a lot more relaxed. Back then we did go in their own clothes. We don't do that anymore, but back then, we were in our own clothes. We did have like, a phone on us. If we had a phone, you could have your phone. They were the rubbish ones though, because obviously it was like the 2000s, so nothing was very good then. But it was a lot more relaxed. It was like, we had a lot more practical things. So it was more tailored to your interests. So I did like work experience in places and stuff like that. So it was definitely great in that sense, because it was more tailored to me. And I think my attendance went from like nothing to 100%, because it was more tailored to me and my interests and what I liked, and it was more relaxed. There might be 8 kids in a class. So that was great. And I did get some GCSEs from there that I never would have got if I'd have stayed in a mainstream. So that was brilliant. Then the flip side of it was, you know, everybody was like me there. And that was good in a way, because it was like, oh my God, I don't feel like the weird one who's sitting there who doesn't know what's going on, because no one knows what's going on. We're all kind of looking out the window, looking at what's going on, and we're all distracted by everything. So that was good in the sense that I felt like I fit. But then the other side of it was, that's when I kind of got into a lot of like groups of people who maybe weren't the best people for me to be around, get into trouble, drinking a lot, and those risk taking behaviours. That's where they kind of came from then. Um, just out all the time, because we went to school in our own clothes, you just go out straight from school. So you'd be in school from like 9:30, and that was another thing. There was a later start as well, which was great, because a lot of people with ADHD, they really struggle to get up in the morning, don't they? So I'd start at like 9:30, and then we'd finish at 2:30. So it was just that smaller kind of part of your day that and that did really help. But then we'd go out straight from school, and that was when it was like, right, we need this kind of like craved dopamine then. So it was the getting drunk and the getting into trouble, and you know staying out all hours. And I mean, my poor mum was just demented. um all I wanted to do was just go out. I was just out all the time. Nothing got in the way of me going out. It was like it was like an addiction, of just those highs all the time of, getting in trouble, and, being drunk and all that kind of thing. And, I think now, God, if Facebook was the kind of way it was now, then I would have been that kid that was posted pictures all the time of like missing, and, and when I think about what I put my mum through, I feel horrendous. But it was that kind of, it was that rush all the time of what was going on, and the rush of like the chaos of everything, and things like that, and all that little bit of excitement. And um I did rely quite heavily on alcohol as well, because I think I kind of use it as a bit of an excuse, because it was like I didn't necessarily know how to behave in certain situations, or I didn't know what was okay to say or what wasn't okay to say, because sometimes you'd say things and people would be like, that came across quite rude. Or
Yeah.
sometimes you'd say things and people would be like, that's a bit random. So it was a case of, well, if I'm drunk, I'll just say I was drunk. I'll just use that as an excuse. So then that I kind of relied on that quite a lot. Of, if somebody would say like, oh, you said this, or you were doing that, or you were dead loud, or you were being ridiculous. It was kind of like, oh, I was drunk. But if I did those things not drunk, then I'd be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, do you think I'm weird? That type of thing. So yeah, so the people referral unit was great in one way, but then opened me up to a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been involved in at such a young age.
Yeah. It's again like you said about the being a classroom. If it's boring, it's really, really hard. We want stimulating activities. We want something that's going to excite us, interest us. And if we're not getting it from, the good places, it's very hard to say no to the bad places.
Mhm.
We'll go down that avenue because we need to have that, that dopamine fix or whatever. We're searching for that thing to make us feel good,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
And
and
confidence as well, I think, because
yeah,
when you do I know for me, when I would get drunk, I felt so confident. I was like everybody's best friend, and and that kind of, and it was just so much easier to kind of be around people when I was drunk, because it was like, well, I kind of felt like I was able to ask the questions that I would never ask if I was sober, or I was able to challenge the things that I would never want to challenge if I was sober, and then just use that as like, oh, I was drunk. Oh, I don't know what, it was just one of them, and it is that kind, you're constantly looking to kind of to fit in with people, and
yeah,
it is that kind of fitting in with people, isn't it? And a lot of the people that I was around, they were all drunk and, on drugs and in trouble with the police and all that kind of thing. And I was just kind of like, oh, this is quite exciting, isn't it? And but too scared to actually do too much of it myself. I was like, I'm not getting too heavily involved in it because I'm a little bit scared. Um, but being around all those and having that rush of the drama, I think that was a big thing as well. And there was always drama, there was always something going on, and being like, oh, that's exciting, and they're talking about them, and blah, blah, blah. And that's where I got that from. So it did very much become, it was dangerous, and I think now, I think, thank God, I made it out of that, because, if I didn't, I dread to think what my life could have become if I didn't make it out of those situations.
it's a hard place to be when you don't have the answers, when
Yeah,
you don't have that direction, and you don't know why you're doing all these things. I mean, the real kind of underpinning reasons why you're doing these things, it's exciting and things like that, and that's why you're doing it. But the couple of steps further back about the dopamine and how our brain needs to be stimulated and things like that. So it's good that we've come along. In a way, we've come a long way. Um, and I think most of it, we've come a long way because of our own research than
yeah.
anything else. Um, but how do you think you cope with your mental health going through all of this, not knowing the answers and the struggles at school and doing the things that you were doing? How do you think that impacted your mental health?
I think I'm still kind of struggling with it. I'd love to say, that I know that I've got ADHD. I'm fine now. It's all the answers, and that's not the case. And I think sometimes you it's quite, you're almost in mourning, I think, sometimes, because you think, what if I'd have known then what I know now? What if people had, and sometimes I think, what could I have been? What could my life have been if I'd have known then, or if other people had known then what I know now? And that really, really gets me down quite a lot, because you think there was so much wasted opportunity for things, and
Yeah.
the the things that I was struggling with, I really did struggle with mental health, and all the way from school, teenage years, early adulthood to now, I do still struggle with my mental health a lot. I have good days and bad days. But I think because of the situations that I got myself into, or the situations I was forced into, or things like that, that has a massive impact on me now. And it was those kind of, because of those risk-taking behaviours, because of that need for the exciting things. It's not exciting for long, and that's what I always think. I always used to go, but it's funny, but it's funny, but it's funny. And now I realise it's not funny for long. Once that kind of initial, oh yeah, this is really fun, wears off, I find myself in some quite dangerous situations around quite a lot of dangerous people. Um, and the things that happened with them are still impacting my mental health now. So I think that's, if I hadn't have constantly been chasing that dopamine rush, that constant excitement all the time, I would never have met those people, would never have got involved with those people, and I wouldn't still be recovering from the trauma of that now. So yeah, it's an ongoing process, I think, isn't it? And I'd love to say that, oh, now I know I've got ADHD, I know why I am the way I am and why I feel the way I feel, but it's still difficult to manage all those emotions right from childhood, and then you get, adult emotions and all that kind of thing and stuff. So it's a daily battle, I think, isn't it, really? And I think now, like, it's so hard, it's still hard to get support for anything. I've been on the waiting list for trauma counselling for over a year, and it's like, well, that's, they just say, oh yeah, we'll put your name down, but it's a year's wait. And you go, oh, okay. So then you've got all that time of dealing with all those things, and you're just waiting to get seen by somebody that, you think, how long am I going to be on this list for?
But at the same time, you're expected to deal with everything.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not quite
um,
knowing how.
yeah, yeah. The waiting lists are just silly.
Yeah.
Across the board, it's not just about being assessed for the ADHD or autism, or it's the other things as well. Speech and language therapy.
Mhm.
All the different sort of aspects of support you could sort of tap into. It's never quick. It's never,
No,
you
your
know.
name just gets
uh,
added to a list, and then that's it then, isn't it? You're just waiting there for years, and quite a lot of the time, it's it's always the kids with special needs that are the ones that are suffering. It's always the kids that, don't. I mean, I have it with my own children. Both my children are on the well, one's diagnosed ASD, the other way's not the one's on the pathway for it. My little boy, I would definitely guarantee that he will get an ADHD diagnosis at some point. Because he is that typical little boy bouncing off the walls, jumping all around the place. You could kind of, he's only 4, so you've got to be, what is it, 6 before they look
6, yeah.
for ADHD and things. But I think I read somewhere that it was something like 20 to 50% of people with ADHD also have autism. And it's just, when you look at that, it's madness, isn't it? And you just think, well, what support is out there for anybody? Especially for adults now that have been through all these things. You see some. That's why the waiting list is so much, because so many adults now have failed as kids, but they're taking away the support. They're taking away. Oh no, we haven't got funding for that. We haven't got funding for that. And it's just so frustrating, isn't it? That it is the people with neurodiversity and other conditions that just get, oh, put your name down, but you'll be waiting a while, so don't hold out much hope of any support anytime soon.
Yeah. But if you step out of line,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's you're held absolutely responsible for everything. However, although you've been crying for help for such a long time, you're just not getting it.
No.
Um, Even with the diagnosis, you're just not. And I think it's an absolute. It's outrageous that we have to do our research ourselves. You know, you speak to a lot of people with ADHD, and where do they get the information from? All the places where you shouldn't get the information on, social media. You go straight to
Yeah.
social media because you don't know where else to go, because no
Yeah.
one tells you. So you have to go onto your social media to start talking to people, to start working out where to go and all the different sites and things like that. Um,
But then
And
you don't
that's
know
where we,
yourself what's misinformation. Like you don't know you could be looking at something that is, completely wrong. I mean, don't even get me started on the latest, the Donald Trump
oh,
paracetamol and
don't,
auto, don't get me started on that.
don't.
It's that kind of like you don't know what misinformation that is out there. I'm finding it for my own children that nobody comes to you and says, this is the support you can get, this is what you're entitled to, this is where you can go for it. You have to go looking for it and you have to fight for it. Otherwise, you just get left. And that's just like I feel like I'm lucky because I'm very much kind of like with my kids, I'm like dog with a bone. I am like, no, you will get that support. I know you will get what you're entitled to. And, but there are a lot of parents who don't feel able to do that. And a lot of parents have got their own needs. I mean, we know ADHD, ASD, we know the genetics. So a lot of the time, parents themselves have unmet needs that they don't even know about, and it's just so sad that it's just that cycle, isn't it? And it's just kind of like there needs to be something so we break that cycle of, the undiagnosed parents don't end up with undiagnosed children, and then it goes on and on and on like that. It's just shocking the lack of support for neurodiverse people.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Considering how much information, correct information is out there, the science is there, the proof is there, and it's
Yeah,
been there for decades, and ADHD has been there for well over 100 years. It's all there in black and white. Um, and it's just weird that society still doesn't take that into account. It just goes on the whole naughty boy, you know, um, syndrome.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
But you haven't got it. You're just naughty. You just need to pay attention. Um, I just need
Basically.
to focus harder without my glasses on. I need to squint harder to focus your face. Okay. And it's my fault if I don't focus your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it is, it's crazy. But did you find there was any sort of, I don't necessarily mean official help for you, but was there anything that you found helpful for you that you just either looked for or just came across accidentally, or anything that you felt helped?
I think I think for me, I think I was kind of unaware until I had my son. So I was quite young when I had my daughter. I was 20 when I had my daughter. And she just was literally she was my hyper focus. I was still am, I was just obsessed with her. Like I was my hyper focus, my goal was I'm gonna be the best mum that I can possibly be. I didn't care about anything else, anybody else. I just zoned in on her. And she had little quirks, but so did I. So it was like, that's just what you do. That's just how everybody is. That's just how all things are. When I had my little boy, so quite a few years later, there's 9 years between my daughter and my little boy, um, he kind of started to display behaviours that my daughter hadn't kind of displayed, but they were similar to things that I would do and things like that. And I think I remember thinking, that's not typical for a child to do, but I know that I do it. And there'd always kind of be like conversations about, oh, Catherine's away with the fairies, and oh, Catherine can't focus on anything, and oh, Catherine's so self-absorbed, and all that kind of thing, and oh, she's so harsh, and all that. And I was just like, oh. Yeah. And then I think as I kind of started watching my son, and as I kind of being like on social media a little bit, and seeing things about, people coming out saying that they had ADHD, I was like, oh, I think I might as well. And then kind of looking into it a little bit more, and taking into account all my past and all my childhood, I was like, oh yeah, possibly. And then speaking to my husband a lot as well, because my husband, I mean, God love him, he is, the only neurotypical in our house, and he must just be demented with all of us. And speaking to him a lot, and I think I kind of always got, I kind of always grew up people telling me that I was very, 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 very selfish, very, very self-involved, very self-absorbed. So I was always kind of too scared to kind of ask other people what they thought
Yeah.
I was kind of like, because I thought, oh no, I don't want them to think that I'm just obsessed with myself or anything like that. Um, but I think looking at my past and asking people, you know, who maybe don't have ADHD, well, do you do that, or is that just what I do? And then looking into it more and thinking, oh, I've always done that, and I didn't think that that was different. But then other people go, no, 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 that's not what everybody does. And I think that was definitely, I think my husband was a massive help for me with that. And um he was supportive. I think, it's a bit of a it's quite frustrating now, because it almost seems like it's a bit of a trend, and it really, really, really quite annoys me when people will say, oh, it's me, ADHD. And I will always say, oh, have you been diagnosed? No, no, I'm self-diagnosed. And I think, don't get me wrong, yeah, there are a lot of people out there who do have ADHD and aren't diagnosed and things like that. But I think sometimes what people will say, or what people will do, is they'll go, oh God, I can't focus on anything. I'm so ADHD. Oh, I'm losing everything. Oh, I'm so ADHD. Oh, I'm forgetting everything. And it's like,
Mm.
oh
Yeah.
no, that's not what it's like. It's not a nice, it's quirky and it's funny until it is that kind of, you've got 10 things unfinished, because you can never just focus on doing one thing, because you're always going on to another thing, or when your brain just won't stop going over and over and over, and you're awake all night because you just can't switch off your brain. um and I definitely do think that seeing like social media and research and things have definitely helped. I worked in a school as well, so I worked back in the pro that I went to as a kid. And I trained as a emotional literacy support assistant,
Okay.
which was basically just helping the kids in school with their emotional literacy and all those kind of things. I think that definitely helped me to kind of understand why I do the things that I do, and kind of be like, oh, actually, I'm not weird, or I'm not, all over the place and things. I'm just, my brain's just wired a little bit differently to everybody else's. Um, and I think just being kind to yourself is a massive thing, isn't it? And not putting so much pressure on yourself for everything. I think even as a parent, when I had my daughter, I put so much pressure on myself to be the perfect parent. I mean, she was dressed immaculately every single day. Everything was just perfect, and you know, everything had to be this way. And if it wasn't a certain way, I'd like have a complete breakdown of, it's supposed to be like this, it's supposed to be like this, it's supposed to be like this. And, you know, it can't be like that. It can't be perfect all the time. And, you know, that's okay. It's okay if you can't take your kids out of a weekend and all you can do is just sit on the couch and watch films and, you know, eat rubbish. That's okay. Because sometimes you think, well, those times are actually the memories that you make with your kids as well, aren't they? Um,
Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it is. I think a lot of it is just trying to slow down. I think that's a big thing for me. Just trying to slow down and just kind of go, actually, you know, does that really matter? And just being kind to myself and just saying, no, like I'm not wired the same as everybody else. I'm not the same as, like I find daily things almost impossible sometimes, you know, cooking, cleaning, all that kind of. Sometimes I'm just like, oh no, I can't do it. And it's all right. Like you can't do those things, and I think just not putting so much pressure on yourself to kind of be like everybody else when actually you're not, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just a shame that you have to do years of research yourself and years of knockbacks and years of dead ends and, not being supported or helped or believed to get to the point where you've got a bit of knowledge and then you can start putting things in place and start,
Yeah,
I guess, turning your life around.
yeah.
Um, and you don't get a lot of credit for that either. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
it's like
like,
you should be doing that. You should be doing it. So why should you get credit for doing what you should be doing? But then people don't realise how difficult and draining it is to do what you should be doing.
yeah, yeah. There's a big difference between the thought processes that we have to go through to be able to do something. Um, just do something, and it can be very, very, very different. Um, One of the things I said to my wife, because it's very hard to explain and try to really make other people, neurotypical people, understand certain, parts of your presentations. And I remember essentially one night of not being able to sleep properly because stuff at work or something, and your head was going and she couldn't shut it off. I mean, everyone's kind of like had that. Um, and I said to her, right, okay, this is perfect timing. That is my head every day, all day.
Yeah.
So, with you lying in bed going, oh, I just can't, it's not switching off. It's not switching off. I want to go to sleep. I can't do it because my brain is not allowing me to do it. That is my head all day
All the time.
at a base level. That's where I am. Okay. And then she's like, okay. And then from then she's like, I don't know I don't know how you guys can do it. Because our son is ADHD as well. I don't know how you could live sort of like that with that going around so much in your head. So it's trying to use those, well, for me anyway, those kind of scenarios to point out this is, this is my life. This is normal for me. So, I can't always do the normal things that you do
Yeah.
because these things are getting in the way. Just like that scenario, your head was getting in the way, no matter how much you wanted to go to sleep, no matter how much you needed to. You're going to work the next day, so you have to get to sleep because of the consequences. You're going to be so tired and not be able to function properly. But there's no way of you going, okay, I'm going to sleep now. It's not happening.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's where we are a lot of the time. We know
Yeah.
what we need
All
to
day.
do. It's just doing it. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Very, very hard. Yeah.
And then if you don't have the answers, you haven't got, you haven't got diagnosed, you haven't got the answers. What are you going to do? You just cope however you cope. And sometimes it's a good
Yeah.
thing. Sometimes you put strategies in place that you didn't know strategies. They're just something that worked. Or sometimes you put things in place that, aren't so good.
Yeah.
But you're doing it to try and overcome this situation,
Yeah.
or try
I
and
have a thing that
bypass
I
it.
do, and it's like a rule of if I get home and I've got stuff that I need to do, I don't take my shoes off because the minute I take my shoes off, it's kind of like that's comfy mode now. So I won't take my shoes off if I know I've got something else that I need to do, and it could be I've got something else to do in 5 hours, but I'm like, oh, if I take my shoes off, that's it. I'm not doing it. So I have and a bit like I read something once and it was like if you've got ADHD and you've got stuff to do, don't sit down because if you sit down you're not getting back up. And it is
Yeah.
things like that. It's that kind of I'll do things and I'll be like I'll almost kind of, and it doesn't work, so but I'll do it like I have to do it all at once, because if I don't do it all at once then I won't do it, but then because I do it all at once I'm exhausted. And then it is like you do feel, I think I sometimes I do feel a little bit pathetic sometimes, because I just think why can't I just do it? Why can't I just, and it takes you right back to being in school. Why can't I just do it? Why can't I just be
Yeah.
like everybody else? Why do I find this so difficult? Um, but it's just trying to cope however you can, isn't it really? And asking for support, I think, as well. That's a massive thing of, you know don't feel like you can't ask people for support, and whether that be family or professionals as well. Um there are, like, I'm quite lucky where I live, there are quite a lot of like groups for parents with ADHD as well, kind of parents with ADHD who are parenting, neurodiverse children. Um, because that I think that's one of those things of when you have your own needs of ADHD or ASD, and then you have to parent children with those things. In one sense, I find it's amazing because you you understand each other and you've got such strong bonds because it's like, yeah, I get it. Then on the other side of it, you don't half trigger each other something rotten, don't you? Because you're just like, why can't? Sometimes I would be like, why won't they just do as they're told? And then I go, oh, because it's actually not that easy, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's true. It's very true. It's not as if you have ADHD and then you have a child with ADHD. It's not like, yeah, well, I know it now. I can sort them. I can parent them. No problem at all because I have ADHD and I know what I'm talking about and it's all great. No, because it's a big spectrum and there's going to be areas of that you can relate to, and there's areas of it that you're like, I don't get that at all whatsoever. Because that's not your presentation. I'm so are you combined type or
Yes. Yeah. Fine
cool.
type. Yeah.
I'm inattentive, predominantly, and so the whole bouncing off the walls things, running around all that, I don't get that. Okay, I understand it,
Mm.
but that's never been me. I don't know what it's like to have
Yeah.
that feeling of I need to get up and get ready and get doing stuff and get out there, and I've never had that feeling. Um, you
Yeah.
know, however, the not paying attention, not listening, and forgetting all that. Yeah, completely,
Yeah.
completely understand. A lot of the time on my podcast, if I've talked to them beforehand, I'll say, just be yourself, and half the time you're not going to remember anything I've said. I'm not going to remember half the stuff you said.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. I mean, that is literally what it is. And I do the editing afterwards, and sometimes I could have to listen to the whole thing. And sometimes I'm like, I don't remember him saying that.
Yeah.
Did we talk about that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, because I can't help it. It is just literally just it's how the brain works. So, but
And it's not like you're
um,
not listening because you are listening, but it's not sinking in, if you like.
this is it. It's got to be in your head for a certain amount of time before it becomes part of the memory and everything. But there's lots of things going on as well because you might have said something a bit earlier on that my head's gone back to. As you're still talking to me about something else. And then I'll like flip over to I'm looking at the questions on here. I've got another screen here with all the questions on because I have to have them in front of me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be at a sentence out. I'm not going to remember anything to. It'll be a really rubbish conversation. Um,
Yeah.
so, but even still, I'm going to look at that and then ask you the question. And I'm probably going to change the question as I go along because I can't remember what I've just read.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, yeah, that's life with ADHD, I guess.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
so when it comes to when you finished your education and you came out, um, did you find? I mean, when did you get diagnosed? I guess I should ask you that first.
So I got diagnosed last year, early last year.
Okay,
It was. Yeah.
okay. So when you got diagnosed, what help and support was offered to you?
No, nothing. Nothing at all. Just kind of like,
No.
it's almost like you go, yeah, you've got it. There you go. Off you go. That's it, really. And again, it's you have to go looking for that support. You have to go chasing it. You
Yeah.
have to go and ask for it over and over and over again to just be told you're on a list. Um, so that yeah, there's nothing like they just kind of go, well, yeah, you've got it now. What more do you want from us? And you are just kind of left, aren't you, just to kind of process it yourself and deal with it yourself. There's no kind of like, there's no follow up for anything. There was no kind of like, what I mean, they send you links, don't they? They'll give you the letter and they'll be all, oh, this is where you can find the information. But again, as someone with ADHD, you get a big list of all links that you can click on, and it's like, oh, so you click on one, and then you look through, and then you go, oh, that's too much, and then you click on, oh, that's too much to read, So why are you giving people with ADHD pages, pages, and pages and stuff to read when they're just like, for me, unless something's like bright and colourful and eye catching, I'm just gonna go, oh, I've got no interest in that. Um, so yeah, just a leaflet of websites you can access to find out information, basically. Um,
Yeah.
and that's it, really, isn't it? And then you're on your own.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of people I spoke to about and asked the same question, 99% said exactly the same thing. And it's
Yeah,
at the beginning, I thought, oh, that's, oh, that's a bad clinic, or that's a bad clinic, or that's a bad therapist, or whatever. But now I realize it's across the board. It's how the industry is. That is it. You get your diagnosis, off you go. The clinic I went to, I loved them. I thought they were great, absolutely great. I've got a lot of time for them compared to pretty much all the other clinics I've heard about. Um, the people who I went to are just completely a cut above the rest. But exactly the same thing. There you go. Um, I had 22 pages of my report. That took me 8 months to get through because
yeah,
like I'm not reading that. I did,
yeah,
I couldn't read at school, and I'm not reading that. Um, so yeah, I got diagnosed just over 2 years ago now. Um, but it's not built for ADHD. The whole process of what you have to go through is not built for anyone with ADHD. You know, you go to people who don't know anything about ADHD and they tell you stuff, which you're then meant to remember. And then when you've done all the research, which is really hard because you can't focus on anything. And for a lot of people, learning about ADHD isn't that exciting. So you've got to do all this research, which to a neurotypical person could have been done in a couple of weeks, but it'll take us a couple of years because we have to try and
yeah,
get that information to stay in our heads. Um, and then when you get to see someone, you have to book an appointment to speak to them. You got to remember that appointment. You got to turn up on time, otherwise you're going to be put back on the list. And then you
yeah,
get the forms to fill in. Oh my God, that's a lot of information because you've got to remember your life.
yeah,
I can't remember yesterday, let alone
yeah,
the last 50 years of my life. And, again, you then have to go and sit down and chat. And if you're late, you're going to miss your spot, put the back of the list, da, da, da. Or if you don't show up because you've forgotten, because you forgot to put in your diary, whatever it is, they're still going to charge you. And then if you want it, you have to be put on the list and then pay again, or, if you're private or whatever. And it's all against you from the start. It's like going to hospital because you've got to find out that why you're having real chest pains every time you do an exercise, but where you got to go, your clinic is on the 10th floor and there's no lift and you're not allowed to be
yeah,
late. It's like they wouldn't do that,
yeah,
but that's what they do to us all the time.
yeah.
So it's yeah, oh dear, that's how it is, I guess. Um, okay, so going through all your experience with education and what you went through, has that, I guess, has that sort of shaped your mindset on what you do now or what you did after education?
Yeah, so I did start to work in the pupil referral unit, as I said, that I went to as a kid. So I did go back to work there because my kind of view was, I want to be somebody that I needed when I was younger. I want to be that person that these kids could go to kind of, understand, they're not being defiant, they're not being naughty, they're not kind of like being disruptive, they're trying, and I always say school is really, really hard and school isn't for everyone. I think it's definitely changed how I parent my children as well. Um, because I just think I don't want to push and push and push and push my kids and have a lasting damage effect on them to kind of go into school and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Um, Obviously they know school is important. They know, you go to school, go to your lessons, you do your best. Some days that doesn't kind of happen for them, but then you go, okay, well, that's fine, tomorrow's a new day, and you start again, and that's fine. um I am very much kind of like, with the schools, I will be like, can I come in for a meeting? Can we have a sit down? Can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? Because I'm like, I'm not having them going unnoticed, and that, like, I was. um and I think, because I know both of them are ASD, I think, well, we've got to put things in place for them that we know will work. And mainstream schools are just not, tailored to children with ASD or ADHD. They're just not. And I think a lot of it is that kind of, they will do lots of things. My little boy is in primary school, and they are really good, and they are really trying. But for them, there's only so much they can do as well, because they haven't got funding, they haven't got the staff. Um, so it is difficult for the schools, and I am, obviously, having worked in schools previously, I am aware of that. But then at the same time, I'm like, but I am also a parent to these children, and as much as I understand that there's funding issues, and you've got targets to reach and all that kind of thing, as much as I understand that, these are my kids, and I am gonna, I don't care if I annoy you. I don't care if, when you put the phone down from me, you're rolling your eyes and going, oh, that kid's mom on the phone again. I'm not bothered, because I just think, I know what happens if you don't chase things up. I know what happens if you don't push, and I know what happens if you don't, continue to ask for that support. You know, the kid in school, they're one of hundreds. They're my one and only. And I just think, well, I will push, and I will ask for the support, and I will keep asking and keep asking. And if they can't do this, okay, well, what else can you do? If this isn't available, or if we can't do this, what other avenue can we go down? Because I just think I don't want my kids to go through the same things that I went through. Um, I don't want them spending years and years without the support that they should be getting. And I think, as I think I'm lucky in the sense of, I've been on both sides of it. Well, I've been on all sides of it. I've been the kid with ADHD who can't cope. I've been, the person in the school who, yes, you do have targets that you have to meet, but these kids are trying, and it is really, really difficult for them. But then also the parent, of the kids who are struggling, and to be like, I mean, the whole system is just flawed, isn't it? The whole system is just completely flawed. Um, and that's why, I did set up the petition that I set up, to allow up to 5 days absence, authorised mental health days, for children, particularly with ADHD and with ASD, because they're battling enough things in their minds. I just think all kids go through things, all kids, struggle at some point, but kids with ADHD and kids with autism struggle a lot more.
Yeah.
So the petition that I set up was to basically kind of ask the schools, to authorise those mental health days, because attendance is such a big thing for schools. It's everything. I've worked in the schools when they're like, unless you're in hospital, you should be in school, which is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And they're constantly going on and on and on about how much your attendance matters. Yeah, your attendance does matter, but your mental health matters more.
Yeah.
And I feel like, with kids, with neurodiversity and things, there's a battle in their head all the time, 24/7, constantly battling something in their head. So when you then throw the mental health into things, and things that are going on in school, and just trying to fit in school, while also trying to be well behaved, do your lessons, all those kind of things, it's just so much, isn't it? Um,
It's a lot.
so I set up the petition to basically say, sometimes they just need a day, and I've had that with, with my daughter, when she's been struggling, and I've said, take the day, don't push yourself, because you continue to push yourself, and it can be detrimental to you, you know, and it can make things worse and stuff. And, you know, obviously she knows how important her education is, but I don't want to prioritize just get in over her mental health, because
Oh,
quite
absolutely.
often they go in, and if they're not in a good place, they can't learn anyway. You know, she might go into school and she might only attend one lesson. So really that's not a win just because she's there, because she's only been able to go to one lesson, you know. And it's things like that. So it's, but also it's signposting the kids as well, because quite a lot of the time there will be kids who you don't think are struggling, you know, oh, they're fine, you know, they're great, you know, like you said yourself before, you know, you're looking at what somebody else is doing just so you've got something to put down, because you know you want to do the work, and they could come across as fine, they're not struggling at all, but then they go home and it all comes out at home, and they have, you know, they're in crisis mode at home, because that's, you know, hopefully that's their safe place. um you know, so it's signposting children of, oh, actually they've taken 2 mental health days over the last couple of weeks. That clearly indicates that there's something going on. What can we do to help? You know, and it's that kind of being proactive instead of
Yeah,
being reactive, you know, putting things in place before they get out of control. And then before you know it, they end up like me and they're not in school for 3 years.
yeah. And we don't want that, because there's just so many things that could be done in school, even in my personal opinion, I should say. Even without the financial support and things like that. I mean, education for the teachers and everything is key. You know, they need to have better training. And not just for the teachers, the support staff, uh, the um, the TAs and everything like that. They need to be training. Um, but the attitude towards it as well. You know, um, I think I don't speak about my son so much, because I think that's when he's older, it's his story to tell. But I just think that he's um in a SEND school now. Going back to what you said before about fighting, you know, whoever shouts the loudest will get hurt. Okay, so you gotta. And I did. That's when in my life, that's where I found my voice, when I started to fight for my son. Um, so we got into a SEND school, and I asked him, "Why do you like it so much there?" Because he was on reduced hours and everything before. He goes, "Because they talk to me differently and they treat me differently." And that's huge. That's a huge thing. That's not lots of money thrown at it. That's just, I'm just not going to blame you for everything that you do, you know?
Definitely. Yeah.
Um, and I think that needs to be done a lot more. And I think that the powers that be need to actually talk to the right people. Because I think if you talk to the teachers, um, about it, they'll say kind of one thing, but they don't really have that insight. If you talk to the students who are in school, they don't really have the vocab to really express what is going on, you know, even just after school. But if you speak to late diagnosed, we're talking in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, um, who didn't get any help support until, 40 years into life, they will tell you what it was like at school and their life after school and work and everything. Um, they would tell you how it is, because they have the words for it. They understand what it's all about now. They understand where the support should have been and why they did things or why they didn't do things and stuff like that. I just think there's a people that the government needs to talk to and tap into, because that's where the knowledge of living with
Yeah.
ADHD is going to
It's a
come
lived
come
experience of
through.
it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a lot of lived experience out there and different, experiences. I come from a very supportive family. I've stable family, supportive family. Um, Everything that your typical stereotypical, maybe, I don't know, ADHD sort of family doesn't look like, because a lot of time it's low income, it's split parents are split up, things like that, and there's a lot of stuff going on because undiagnosed parents,
Yeah.
you know, um, and there's a lot of stuff going on and getting into trouble. That was never me, never
Mhm.
me. I've had all this, not from school, but from family. I've had all the support, everything I could hope for. My parents always try to make me feel that, I should be proud of myself and they're proud of me. Everything I did, every time I swapped jobs and swapped houses and
Yeah.
swapped, addresses and phone numbers and emails and moved to all these different places with the different jobs, always, always proud of it. But still, I struggled massively, you know. Um, So they're the people that you want to they need to listen to, because they have a really good story to tell, real lived experience, and not just about school, but after school, you
Mhm.
know, and what it's like to be a parent of the same child,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, talking to the wrong people, to get this
Always.
information. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. We've had enough of talking to the wrong people. I'm not
Yeah.
talking to anyone else
Gotta
now.
start talking to the right people, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've, I've, yeah, I've. After the head teacher of the previous school blamed me and blamed my son for everything, I vowed never to listen to anyone again
Wow.
about how to raise my son,
No.
apart from my wife. Um,
Yeah.
no, absolutely no one, um, because no one has given me any good advice that works.
No.
Um, apart from the PDA Society, they were awesome. They were the
Yeah.
first people to listen to me, and they were absolutely awesome. But anyway, sorry, we're digressing. Okay, so as we do. So, do you think going back from your time to now, there's been much change in the education system for children with ADHD or suspected ADHD?
I think there's more awareness. I do think there is more awareness, and I think some schools are great. I think some schools are really, really good. Some schools are really, really supportive, but that's not across the board. I think you get some amazing support staff and some amazing teachers. I think from my experience, the higher up you go, the less supportive, because obviously they've got more people to answer to. They've got, they're in the big chairs, and they've got more people to answer to. So I get that. But I think the big thing is the awareness. There is more awareness of it, and you know, more there are more places that they can go for support. As we say, they've got to fight for that support, they've got to go looking for it themselves. But there are more places that they can get support. And I think it's so sad when children don't get the right school for them. I mean, obviously, as we know, like there is like a crisis, with SEND schools. There's just not enough SEND schools for the amount of children that need them. Again, waiting lists just as long as your arm. It's just ridiculous. Um, I think on paper and I think in theory, lots of schools will say they put things in place, but not all schools do. And I think that is a shame. I think there should be, all schools should kind of be on the same page. Should they not kind of get, well, they went to that school and they had a really, really successful experience, or they went to that school and it was a little bit rubbish and things like that. I think schools are much better now than when I was in school, but I still think there is a long, long way to go. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, agreed, agreed. So, is there anything particular you think should be introduced to all schools to further support our kids? Is there
Yeah, I mean,
something just? I mean, there's loads. Don't get me wrong, there's loads. But is there anything that
lots,
really
lots.
sort of?
Yeah. I think that's why, that was one of the reasons why I set up that petition was, for kind of, and like a lot of people were like, oh, it's just for them to kind of go on holiday, and oh, it's just for them to kind of have a day off. That's not the case at all. That is not what the whole thing was about. The petition was about, no, it's children who are struggling with their mental health. particularly neurodiverse children, because, you know, we know that they have got lots of things going on anyway. You know, but just to kind of give the schools a bit of an idea of what's going on to start that conversation. You know, all it takes is for the parents to ring up and just say, you know, so and so's not coming in today. They are really, really struggling with their mental health. So I feel it's best for in their best interest if they stay at home. That then opens up a conversation, doesn't it? Of, oh, we maybe weren't aware that they were struggling. What can we help with? You know, and that could be for children who don't who don't have a diagnosis. You know, that could be maybe the first step to looking into that. Of, you know, you get so many children, don't you, who do just go under the radar because they're just sitting there getting the work done and just trying the best and trying the best, but they're internalizing everything and they're struggling so much. I think the petition for me was a case of, yes, give them the space that they need to kind of regulate themselves so they're able to access their education, but also to be like an avenue of support from the school. Okay, well, you're struggling. What can we do to help? Could we refer you on to other services? Could we do things in school that would help? You know, and to signpost those children that are struggling to say, right, no, they need a little bit of support. What can we do for them? You know, and I do think it will be beneficial, and it's nothing to do with, you know, oh, go and get a cheap holiday, oh, go and have a day off. It's nothing to do with that at all, because, you know, that's a completely separate thing. And, you know, but it is about the children who are struggling, who do just need a day or two to rest, to reset, to just get that kind of, you know, I've had a really, really bad few days. I need to just kind of, it's like charging your phone, isn't it? You know, when your
Yeah.
phone runs out of battery, you plug it in and you charge it, and you leave, you know, and you leave it and it's charged and then it's fine. You know, it's a little bit like that, you know, that kind of, you know, people say, oh, they have every weekend to do that. But then you go, yeah, but do you understand how drained, as, you know, as a person with ADHD, how drained you are by the time you get to like Wednesday or Thursday? You know, like the first couple of days aren't too bad because, you know, you've had the weekend to rest. Then when you get to like a Wednesday or Thursday, and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I've had too much. But it's just that kind of, I just don't want the kids to just keep going and going and going and going and going till they get to breaking point, and then there's been nothing put in place for them. There's been no support put in place for them, and they get to the point where they're like, oh, I'm just burnt out now. I can't cope at all. You know. So again, as I say, it is that proactive kind of thing instead of being reactive all the time, and understanding. No, they want to come to school, but some days are just more difficult than others.
I would love to see them decide they're going to try and do all these things and then have a look at the results from what they've done, as opposed to, no, that's not good enough. We want them in now. Why aren't they in now? Well, because they're not having a great time at school. You know, they've been taught like this. They've been treated like this, not listened to, all the rest. Okay. And you're not listening to, you know, what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
That's why they're not can't get into school. Change all that, and then you can see a difference. And then you might go, ah, this actually works.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it is a lot for kids to go through.
Mm.
I a conversation, this podcast is just around about an hour or so of thinking with an auto cue. So not a lot of thinking, to be fair. About having a conversation afterwards. I need time out.
Mhm.
I know I need to have silence afterwards to
Yeah.
build myself back up again.
Mhm.
Because I can't like do this and then go straight into work, or do this and then go straight into family time,
Yeah.
because I can't cope with that. Okay, and that's me as a 50-odd-year-old. You know, um, think of the kids.
Yeah.
When they don't know what's going on, they're in, a lot of them are in the same boat. So yeah, I don't want to go for a week of spending 8 hours having conversations with people, because I won't be able to do it. I
Yeah.
won't be able to do it. Yeah. So we got to look after our kids.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So What would you say then to all the parents out there then who, with regards to recognizing if their children are suffering with a mental health and they don't know what to do, force them into school or just keep them out or researching or what should they do? What do
I
you
think
think you can
speaking to
tell
the
everyone?
school, I think speaking to school is a big thing, isn't it? I think, having those conversations with the school and having the conversations with your children, and understanding, they're not just being defiant. A lot they do want to go in, because a lot of the time, they do want to fit in, they want to be like their friends, they want to be like, they don't want to miss out on things a lot of the time, do they? I think I always say, don't ever worry about being that parent who's on the phone all the time as well. Don't ever worry about that,
Well, yeah.
getting moaned at by somebody. No, that's your child. I always think, if you don't fight for them, who else will?
Yep.
Definitely just talk to the schools, talk to your children, and just try, because I mean, life's hard enough, isn't it, for everybody? um and I think it's so tempting to get really, really frustrated and just be like, oh, just get in, get in, get in, get in. But then, are they actually learning when they're there? Are they actually, regulated when they're there? And if they're not, then is it more detrimental to them being forced in than kind of maybe being kept at home for, a day or so, to then get the meeting with the school and speak to school about what you can put in place? I think that's definitely, you're definitely having a good relationship with the school is massive, and that's easier said than done when the school aren't maybe as supportive. Um, but yeah, don't ever worry about being that parent who's on the phone constantly, or researching things or questioning things and stuff like that. I would always say, just question everything, because they're your baby at the end of the day, aren't they? Question
Yep.
things, challenge things. Go into every meeting prepared with what you're going to say, and don't ever be embarrassed to, be that parent who maybe might be a little bit of a pain sometimes, because you're being a
Yeah.
pain for all the right reasons, aren't you?
Absolutely. Like I said, whoever shouts the loudest is going to get
Yeah,
heard. If you're not doing that, if you're not chasing them up, if you're not going to the office and say, I need to speak to the head
yeah,
teacher or the Senko or whatever, you're not going to get heard.
yeah,
And that is quite disgusting, really. That you have to do that, but it's got to be done, and do it. Yeah, don't be ashamed. Do it. They're your kids.
def-
Do it.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go, then, can you let everyone know where to find you on social media, and of course the petition as well, where to find that, if they want to
Yeah.
sign it and everything.
Yeah, so my TikTok is, and it's Instagram as well, is mental health matters more. There is a link on there about the petition. The petition is mental health matters more, not just attendance. So on my TikTok and on my Instagram, it's pinned at the top. What it is, it's on change.org. That's the website it's on. And it is just kind of, just supporting the kids. Really, that's basically my main focus, is just getting the kids the support that they need to kind of, be successful and live happy, well-rounded lives. Really, that's what it's all about. So yeah, mental health matters more. That's my social media. I've got, I've had messages from parents, asking for like advice and things like that and stuff, and I'm always kind of happy to offer any kind of advice or support as I can.
Um, and that's good to do as well. I've just created, a couple of months ago, a support group, a peer-to-peer support group in the town where I live, because there isn't one.
Oh wow.
And doing that, talking to other people who are in the same boat. It's good to read about stuff, but having actually conversations with people, face to face in the same boat, and exchanging ideas and what worked for them and what doesn't work for them. And, oh, I'm just going to go through this EHCP thing. I don't know what's going on. Someone in the group's going, well, we've just done it, and this is how I can help
Yeah,
you, and this is what you can do. This is who you can speak to. Those are just invaluable.
definitely,
Um,
definitely. Taking that
so
advice from other parents, that, and I think that is a massive thing, and I think they're not as like promoted enough, so a lot of people don't know where they are or how to find them or what to do and things like that. But I do definitely think they do have a massive, massive help.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see what other parents have gone through, and things that have, avenues that they've taken that have worked for them is a massive help.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been lovely speaking to you. Um, but for everyone who's listening, please just always be good, be kind, and remember, you're not alone. Thank you.